She started as a girl in the palace, quiet and unnoticed. But by the time she was done, she had climbed higher than any woman in Chinese history. She didn't just become empress, she became emperor, the one and only female to rule China in her own name. Her name was Wu Zetian, and to some, she was a genius. To others, she was a monster. But no one could deny what she did. She changed everything. Wu Zetian was born in the year 624 during the Tang dynasty. Her family was wealthy, and her father was a respected general. That meant she had something most girls didn't, an education. While many girls were taught only how to sew or serve, Wu Zetian learned to read and write. She studied history, politics, and literature. And from a young age, she already had big thoughts and big dreams. At 14, she was brought into the imperial palace to become one of the emperor's concubines. That's what they called the women chosen to live at court, not as queens, but as companions. There were many girls like her, and most faded into the background. But Wu Zetian paid attention. She watched how the palace worked. She learned who had power and how they used it. She understood that beauty could open doors, but intelligence could hold them open. At first, she served Emperor Taizong. But when he died, something shocking happened. Traditionally, when an emperor died, his concubines were sent to a Buddhist temple to live the rest of their lives as nuns. Wu Zetian was sent away like the others. But years later, she came back because the next emperor, Taizong's son, Gaozong, had fallen in love with her. She returned to the palace, not just as a former concubine, but as a rising force. At this point, Gaozong already had a wife, Empress Wang, and another favorite concubine named Consort Xiao. Both of them saw Wu Zetian as a threat. The palace turned into a battlefield of whispers and secrets. Accusations flew, stories were told, and then came the moment that would change everything. Wu Zetian's infant daughter died under mysterious circumstances. Some say the child was smothered. Some say it was an accident. But Wu pointed the finger at Empress Wang. Whether it was true or not, the emperor believed her. Empress Wang was stripped of her title, and Wu Zetian was crowned empress. And once she had power, she never let it go. At first, she ruled beside her husband, but over time, his health got worse, and she started making decisions for him. She attended court meetings. She listened to petitions. She issued orders. Ministers began reporting to her directly. Even after Gaozong died, she didn't step aside. Instead, she placed her sons on the throne one by one, only to remove them when they got in her way. Then, in the year 690, she did something no woman had ever done in China before. She declared herself emperor, not empress, not regent, emperor. She changed the name of the dynasty. She made herself the supreme ruler of China, and no one could stop her. But rising to the top didn't come without enemies. Many nobles and scholars hated the idea of a woman on the throne. They spread rumors about her. They said she was too cruel, too ambitious, that she didn't know her place. But Wu Zetian wasn't interested in pleasing them. She was interested in staying in power and building a legacy. She was strict, yes, and sometimes ruthless. She created a secret police force to spy on her enemies. She punished people who challenged her. Some were exiled, some were killed, some were burned alive, according to ancient records. And while that sounds terrifying, and it was, this wasn't unusual for the time. Male emperors had done the same. But because she was a woman, her actions were judged differently. Still, she didn't rule with fear alone. Wu Zetian made real, lasting changes to China. She promoted scholars based on talent, not family background. She opened government jobs to people who weren't from noble families. She improved farming, lowered taxes, and supported public education. She even encouraged women to have more voice in society. Under her rule, the Chinese empire grew stronger, trade increased, the arts flourished, Buddhist temples were built across the country, and people, especially common people, started to see her not as a mistake, but as a great ruler. She ruled for over 15 years as emperor. In her 70s, her health started to decline. Ministers pressured her to step down. And finally, in the year 705, she agreed to pass the throne to her son. A few months later, she died peacefully in her sleep. But after her death, something strange happened. Her enemies started trying to erase her. They tore down her statues, destroyed her records, changed the name of her dynasty back to Tang. They called her evil, unnatural, power-hungry. For hundreds of years, people remembered her more for the way she rose to power than for what she did with it. But time has a way of telling the truth. Modern historians have started to see Wu Zetian in a new light. Yes, she was tough, but she had to be. She ruled in a world where women weren't even supposed to speak in public, let alone run an empire. Every man who had ruled before her had used force and strategy. She used the same tools, but she used them as a woman, and that changed everything. She didn't inherit power, she built it. She didn't ask to be emperor. She became one because no one else could do what she did. She didn't rule to prove a point. She ruled because she was capable, smart, and bold enough to handle it. Today, her name is being taught again, in books, in classrooms, in documentaries, not as a villain, not as a mistake, but as a woman who shattered the highest ceiling in her country's history, the woman who refused to step aside, the woman who changed the story. She did it,